What if beginning again isn't a breakdown, but a divine redirection? Today I'm sharing how those moments when you feel completely lost are actually sacred invitations to something greater. Trust me, the universe isn't playing with you, it's guiding you. Hey, beautiful soul, have you ever felt like everything you built just crumbled? Like the universe pulled the rug right from under you, and you're standing there wondering, what just happened? I see you. I've been there too. That space between what was and what will be. That sacred, terrifying void where you're not sure if you're falling or flying. But what if I told you that this space, this beginning again, isn't a cosmic punishment? What if it's actually an ancient, divine practice of rebirth that your soul signed up for? Now that's something to sit with. You know, across every spiritual tradition, there's this common thread, this understanding that renewal requires release. The Hindus have Lord Shiva, the destroyer who makes way for creation, the phoenix rising from ashes, the springtime that can only come after winter's clearing. These aren't just pretty stories. They're encoded wisdom about the nature of transformation. And right now, you're living that wisdom, even if it feels like chaos. Before we dive deeper, I want you to take a breath with me. Just one conscious breath. Now, set an intention to be open. Open to the possibility that the place where you feel most lost might actually be the exact place you're supposed to be. That your confusion is actually cosmic clarity in disguise. Today, we're exploring how beginnings disguise themselves as endings, and how your soul knows exactly what it's doing, even when your mind is freaking all the way out. I want you to imagine for a moment that your life is a beautiful, complex tapestry. Sometimes, to create the next magnificent section, some threads need to be cut. It might look like destruction from where you're standing, but from a higher perspective, it's actually creation in progress. So, as we move through this journey together, I invite you to hold that wider perspective, to trust that the unraveling is actually a revelation. So here's what nobody tells you about new beginnings. They're ancient. The pattern of death and rebirth isn't just poetic, it's literally encoded in every living thing. That butterfly I showed you, it doesn't just grow wings. First, it dissolves completely inside that cocoon. Complete. Dissolution. And chilly. That's what's happening to you right now. You're not just changing, you're transforming. There's a difference, and it matters. Look at nature. A seed doesn't gently transition into a plant. First, it has to crack open, completely destroy its form as a seed. That cracking isn't failure, it's emergence. The ocean doesn't politely negotiate with the shore. It crashes, recedes, crashes again. That rhythm of assertive movement and full retreat isn't indecision. It's how the ocean shapes entire coastlines. And you're both the seed cracking open to reach for light and the ocean reshaping the shoreline of your life. Your disruption isn't random. It's rhythmic, purposeful, and deeply natural. When you feel lost, you're not actually lost. You're in sacred transformation. The ancient Egyptians called it kepa, becoming. It's not linear, it's cyclical. Your ancestors knew this. Your body knows this. Only your mind forgot. This wisdom is embedded in our DNA, in our cellular memory. Think about it. Your body is constantly in a state of death and rebirth. You shed skin cells, create new blood cells, release what no longer serves. Your body doesn't cling to what's dying. It honors the cycle by letting go with perfect timing. And this process isn't just physical. It happens in our lives, our careers, our relationships. Everything follows this spiral pattern of growth, fullness, release, and renewal. So when everything seems to be falling apart, you're not experiencing a glitch in the system. You're experiencing the system working exactly as it should. The real question is, can you trust the process even when it feels uncomfortable? I remember when my entire career path collapsed. 10 years of building a business gone in 3 months. I was devastated. Identity gone. Income gone. Purpose nowhere to be found. I kept trying to fix it, to force myself back onto the old path. But the universe kept closing doors, and I kept getting more exhausted, trying to push through them. I remember sitting on my kitchen floor at 2 a.m., bills spread out around me, calculating how many months I had before complete financial ruin. I was gripping so tightly to what had been, to my 5-year plan, to the identity I'd built. And in that moment, I heard this quiet voice inside say, "What if you're fighting the wrong battle? What if this ending is actually protection?" It stopped me cold, because deep down, I knew something wasn't aligned in that business. I'd been ignoring little whispers that I was meant for something else, pushing down intuitive hits that there was another path. But I'd invested so much time, so much of myself, that I couldn't imagine letting go. Yet the universe, in its infinite wisdom, didn't give me a choice. The choice was made for me, and looking back, it was the greatest gift, though it certainly didn't feel like one at the time. Here's the wisdom. When doors keep closing, it's not rejection, it's redirection. The soul speaks through synchronicities, not through stress and strain. When something keeps not working, that's not a sign to push harder. It's wisdom trying to turn your ship. Think about how we navigate in the modern world. When we're driving and hit a detour sign, we don't crash through it, insisting our GPS is right. We find another route. But in our lives, we often keep crashing into the same barriers over and over, wondering why we're bruised and exhausted. The universe doesn't speak English. It speaks in patterns, in openings and closings, in ease and obstacles. When you start paying attention to these patterns, you realize that being blocked isn't personal. It's directional. And what if, now stay with me here, what if the things that aren't working out are actually working out perfectly, just not in the way your ego planned? What if your disappointments are actually divine appointments with your highest path? The moment everything changed for me was when I finally surrendered. Not gave up, surrendered. There's a world of difference. I stopped fighting the current and asked, what if this breakdown is actually the breakthrough I've been praying for? And that's when I discovered what I now call the sacred void. That space between no longer and not yet. It's uncomfortable as hell, but it's where all the magic happens. In that void, when I finally got quiet enough to listen, I started receiving the most incredible downloads about my true work in the world. Ideas would come to me in dreams. I'd randomly meet people who would become crucial to my new path. Books would literally fall off shelves in front of me with exactly the message I needed. It wasn't immediate. I spent about 6 months in that void space. Some days were beautiful, filled with inspiration and possibility. Other days, I was curled up in bed, questioning everything. But gradually, I started trusting the unfolding rather than forcing an outcome. The path revealed itself step by step, never showing me the full staircase, just the next step. And each step I took with trust led to another opening, another synchronicity, another confirmation that I was being guided, not punished. Discomfort isn't a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're growing. Caterpillars literally digest themselves before becoming butterflies. Let that sink in. Transformation isn't supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be transformative. There's this collective fantasy that spiritual growth and personal evolution should feel good all the time. That if we're aligned, everything should be easy. But that's not how emergence works. Birth isn't comfortable. Ask any mother. Becoming isn't comfortable. Ask any teenager. Awakening isn't comfortable. Ask any mystic. The discomfort you're feeling isn't evidence that you're on the wrong path. It's evidence that you're shedding an old skin that no longer fits who you're becoming. The discomfort is the friction between your old self and your emerging self, and that friction is necessary for your evolution. So instead of interpreting your discomfort as a stop sign, what if you started seeing it as a growth sign? What if the very things that feel most uncomfortable are actually the exact growing edges your soul is calling you to explore? You know, there's a teaching across many spiritual traditions about the dark night of the soul, that profound crisis that precedes spiritual awakening. The Sufis speak of fana, the annihilation of the self before union with the divine. The Christian mystics wrote about the dark night as essential to encountering God's love. What they're all pointing to is this: before great awakenings come great unravelings, before profound connection comes necessary separation, before clarity comes confusion. And what's fascinating is that modern psychology is catching up to what mystics have always known. Post-traumatic growth studies show how adversity often catalyzes positive psychological transformation. The very experiences we'd never choose can become the foundation for a depth and richness we couldn't otherwise access. So that loss, that heartbreak, that failure that feels so devastating, it might just be the catalyst for your most authentic evolution. Not because suffering itself is necessary, but because the breaking open creates space for new light to enter. So how do you navigate this sacred space of beginning again? I've got 3 practices that changed everything for me. So how do you navigate this sacred space of beginning again? I've got 3 practices that changed everything for me. Practice 1, sacred surrender. First, surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing your grip on how you think things should be unfolding. Try this. Each morning, place your hands over your heart and say, I trust the unfolding of my life. What looks like loss is actually making space for something greater. This practice shifts you from resistance to receptivity. When we're constantly fighting against what's happening, we miss the whispers of what's trying to emerge. Surrender opens your energy field to guidance. When you catch yourself white-knuckling through your day, fighting against what is, pause. Take a breath. Open your palms physically. This simple gesture signals to your nervous system that it's safe to release. Then ask, what if this isn't happening to me but for me? Practice 2, the wisdom question. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Flip the script and ask, what is this teaching me? This simple pivot takes you from victim to student. Write this question at the top of a journal page. and let your soul speak. When we shift from why me to what's the lesson, we activate a different part of our consciousness. We move from our wounded self to our witnessing self, from our ego to our higher wisdom. Try this practice daily, especially when facing challenges. Pour a cup of tea, create sacred space, and write without censoring. Let your pen flow without judgment. You'll be amazed at the wisdom that comes through when you position yourself as the student rather than the victim of your circumstances. Practice 3. Sourced action. Finally, there's a difference between forced action and sourced action. Forced action comes from fear and desperation. Sourced action flows from inspiration and alignment. Before making big moves, get still and ask, is this action coming from fear or from faith? Your body always knows the answer. Pay attention to the physical sensation that accompanies different choices. Forced action often feels constricted, heavy, anxious. You might notice tension in your shoulders, tightness in your chest, or a knot in your stomach. Sourced action feels expansive, energizing, clear. There's an openness in your body, even if there's also some nervousness about stepping into the unknown. Practice discerning between these two types of action. Start with small decisions, feeling into your body's wisdom. As you build this muscle of discernment, you'll find yourself naturally flowing with divine timing rather than pushing against it. Practice 4. Meaning-making rituals. Another powerful practice is creating rituals to mark your transitions. Our society lacks meaningful rites of passage, especially around endings and beginnings. Create your own. This might look like a release ceremony where you write what you're letting go of and burn it under the full moon. It might be a vision quest in nature to listen for what's emerging. It could be as simple as creating an altar with symbols of both what's leaving and what's being birthed. These rituals aren't just symbolic. They help your subconscious integrate the transformation you're experiencing. They create a container for your becoming that honors both the grief of what's ending and the potential of what's beginning. Can I get real with you for a minute? That business collapse I mentioned? It broke me open. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, questioning everything I thought I knew about my purpose. I remember one particularly dark moment where I wondered if I'd ever feel certain about anything again, if I'd ever again have that feeling of, yes, this is exactly where I'm meant to be. The groundlessness was terrifying. The not knowing felt endless. What no one tells you about transformation is that there's this middle place, this messy, uncomfortable middle, where you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. It's like spiritual adolescence, all awkward growth spurts, an identity crisis. But looking back now, that collapse was the best thing that ever happened to me. It cleared the path for this work that actually aligns with my soul's purpose, in a way my previous business never could. There's this profound tenderness I feel now toward that version of me who was so afraid, so uncertain, because I can see what she couldn't yet see, that the universe wasn't abandoning her. It was answering her prayers in ways her limited perspective couldn't yet understand. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's worth it. And I'm saying you're stronger than you realize. That breakdown you're afraid will destroy you, it might just be the breakthrough that will define you. So, divine soul, I invite you to reframe your story. That loss, that ending, that moment when everything fell apart. Can you see it now as the universe conspiring for your highest good? Share in the comments one thing you're releasing to make space for something greater. I'm here in this journey with you, and I truly believe that your greatest beginning is on the other side of what feels like your biggest ending. And if you want to go deeper with this work, I've created a free journal prompt, PDF, called Sacred Beginnings that you can download through the link in my bio. It's my gift to you on this journey. Remember, you're not alone in this space of transformation. So many of us are being called to shed old skins, to release what's familiar but no longer serving our highest expression. When you share your journey, you create permission for others to honor their own process of becoming. Remember this, and I need you to really hear me. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. That feeling of being lost isn't a punishment. It's a prerequisite for finding a new path. Your ancestors knew about cycles of death and rebirth. Your body knows about healing through transformation. And deep down, your soul knows that this beginning again isn't random, it's sacred. There's a beautiful Sufi saying, "Be like the sun for grace and mercy. Be like the night to cover others' faults. Be like running water for generosity. Be like death for rage and anger. Be like the earth for modesty. Appear as you are. Be as you appear." That's what this journey of new beginnings is really about. Allowing yourself to appear as you truly are, to be as you appear. No more masks, no more paths that belong to someone else's story. Trust the process, trust your journey, and most importantly, trust that ancient wisdom within you that knows exactly how to transform. Because baby, that's what you're doing right now. Not just changing, but becoming. Thank you for spending this time with me. I see you, I honor you, and I'm rooting for your beautiful transformation. Until next time, keep shining that gorgeous soul signal.